Hey guys, tonight we're heading to the dark, rain-soaked and gaslit alleys of 1828 Edinburgh. You're new to the city, desperate for work, and you've just found a cheap bed in a crowded lodging house in Tanner's Close. It's run by a friendly, hard-drinking Irishman named William Hare. You know, Edinburgh is the Athens of the North, a world-famous centre for medical science. Its brilliant anatomists, like Dr. Robert Knox, are desperate for fresh bodies to teach their students. But the city's graveyards are heavily guarded. So why go through all the trouble of digging up a corpse when it's so much faster and more profitable to simply create one? Let's be honest. In this world, when you're poor, unknown, and no one would miss you, you're not just a lodger paying for a bed. You're a potential product, worth £7, 10 seconds to the right buyer. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I do here. As always, I'd love to see where in the world you're listening from, so please drop your city and local time in the comments below. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You've heard the stories of Edinburgh. They call it the Athens of the North, a city of brilliant minds, of grand, new, honey-coloured stone buildings where men of science and philosophy are changing the world. You see those buildings as you arrive, perched on the hills of the new town, a world of wide, clean avenues, of order and light. It's a world you can see but cannot touch. Your world, you quickly discover, lies across the valley. You descend into the old town. This is not a city, it's a vertical labyrinth. The buildings, 10, 12, sometimes 14 stories high, lean in on either side, so tall and close together that sunlight is a rumour, a pale, forgotten memory. The air hangs thick and heavy with the smell of coal smoke, brewery mash, and the ever-present stench of the Gardaloo, the contents of chamber pots emptied from windows onto the street below. The noise is a constant, echoing clamour of shouting vendors, iron-rimmed cartwheels on cobblestones, and a dozen languages you don't understand. You are James, a young man from the countryside. Your trade is gone, your few coins have run out. All you own is in a cloth bundle on your back. Hunger is a cold, familiar knot in your stomach, and the damp, penetrating fog of a Scottish autumn is seeping into your bones. You are not here for enlightenment. You are here to survive. You are looking for one thing, a lodging house. The cheapest, meanest bed a man can buy for a few pennies, just to be out of the cold. You follow the signs, ducking into a narrow, dark alleyway off the grass market, a close so tight you can touch both walls with your outstretched arms. The sign, barely readable in the gloom, points you down a set of slippery stone steps into a courtyard that smells of the nearby tanneries and a stale, overpowering odour of whiskey. A crude sign hangs above a dark subterranean doorway. Hare's Lodgings. Beds for travellers. This is it, a refuge. You push open the heavy wooden door, and a wave of hot, fetid air hits you in the face. A dense fog of unwashed bodies, cheap gin, and boiling mutton. The common room is dark, lit by a single smoky fire. It's crowded with the dregs of the city, old soldiers, transient labourers, gaunt-faced women, all huddled together for warmth. A man, his face shrewd and his eyes quick, steps forward. He introduces himself as William Hare, the landlord. He has a jovial, welcoming air, but his smile doesn't quite reach his eyes. Beside him stands a larger, broader man, his friend William Burke, who claps you on the back with a force that nearly sends you sprawling. "Lost, are ye?" Hare asks, his Irish lilt thick. "Looking for a bed? We've got one for ye, lad. A fine, warm spot, just a few pennies a night. The price is all you can afford." You nod, the last of your coins passing from your cold hand to his. He points you to a dark corner, to a straw-filled pallet in a room already crowded with the sound of snoring men. You drop your bundle onto the floor, the rough straw crackling beneath you. You are exhausted, you are hungry, but you are safe. You have a roof over your head, a barrier against the cold, wet night. As you lie back, pulling your thin coat over you for warmth, you listen to the sounds of the lodging house, the coughing, the muttering of a drunk in his sleep, the low, conspiratorial whispering of Hare and Burke by the fire. It is a grim, unsettling lullaby, but it is better than the street. You close your eyes, telling yourself you will be fine here, just for a night or two. You do not yet know that in this house, the price of a bed can be far, far higher than a few pennies. You do not know that you have just willingly walked into the spider's web. Hare grunts, satisfied, and the coins vanish into the dark recesses of his coat. "Right then, lad," he says, his jovial tone fading slightly, the business part of the evening now concluded. "This way. Mind your head." He turns from the smoky warmth of the common room fire and pushes open a low, rough-hewn door. You follow him out of the relative light and into a dark, narrow passage. The air is instantly colder here, the familiar, comforting smell of the fire replaced by something else, a thick, animal-like odor of too many unwashed bodies crammed into a small, airless space. It's the smell of packed earth, of damp, of human misery. Hare holds his candle low, and you see that you are descending. The passage is a shallow, worn set of stone steps leading down beneath the level of the street outside. You are going into a cellar. He pushes open the final door, which scrapes against the earthen floor. The room he leads you into is a cavern of shadows. The ceiling is so low you feel you could reach up and touch the damp-stained beams above. There are no windows. Only a few small, grated vents near the ceiling, level with the alleyway outside, offering no light and only a trickle of foul air. The only illumination comes from a single, sputtering tallow candle in a saucer, placed on a rickety table. Its feeble, greasy flame casts huge, grotesque and dancing shadows on the walls. This is the sleeping quarter. It is a world of huddled shapes in the darkness. Your eyes slowly adjust, and you begin to make out the scene in all its squalor. The floor is packed, damp earth. Along the walls, on thin, lumpy piles of straw that look black with filth and age, are the other lodgers. They are not in beds. They are simply heaps on the ground, wrapped in whatever thin, filthy rags they are using for blankets. In one corner, you make out the shape of an entire family. A man, a woman, and two small, pale children, all sharing a single pallet. There forms a tangled knot of limbs seeking warmth. The sound of a baby crying, a thin, hungry wail, comes from another corner and is quickly and harshly shushed. The room is a low, constant symphony of human suffering. A man mutters and tosses in a drunken, nightmare-filled sleep. Another snores, a loud, wet, rattling sound. And under it all, the one constant, unifying noise, the cough. A deep, wet, hacking sound that comes first from one corner, then is answered by another. It is the persistent, grim music of the house. Hare, holding his candle aloft, seems completely oblivious to the squalor, or perhaps so accustomed to it that he no longer sees it. "Here we are, lad," he says, his voice too loud in the cramped space. He gestures to a narrow, empty gap on the floor. It's not a pallet. It's just a space, a piece of the damp earth, wedged between a large, snoring labourer and the cold, weeping stone of the foundation wall. "Your spot," he says. He tosses a thin, greasy-looking blanket at your feet. It smells sour. "A few pennies get you a roof, lad, not a palace. You'll be warm enough with the rest of 'em." You stand there, your small bundle in your hand, and look at the bed he is offering. You feel a cold wave of pure physical revulsion, a powerful urge to turn, to run back up the steps, into the freezing, rain-soaked alley, anywhere but here. This place feels wrong, not just poor, but diseased. The air is too thick to breathe properly. The coughing is too constant. This isn't a shelter, it's a tomb. But the memory of the cold fog, the empty stomach, the feeling of being utterly alone in a vast, uncaring city stops you. You have nowhere else to go. This is it. This is the price of survival. You slowly, reluctantly, drop your small bundle onto the patch of dirt. You have made your choice. The profound, desperate need for shelter, however grim, has won out over the instinct that is screaming at you to flee. Hare nods, his duty as landlord done. Lights out in an hour. He grunts. He turns to leave, pausing to say a word to a frail, elderly man who is wheezing in a nearby cot. You recognize him from the common room, old Donald, the army pensioner. Hare's voice is surprisingly gentle. Now, ye just rest easy, Donald. Get your strength back, we'll look after ye. You watch Hare's large shadow disappear up the steps, the door closing with a dull, heavy thud, sealing you in. You sit on the edge of your patch of floor, pulling your coat tight, trying not to breathe too deeply, trying not to touch the man sleeping beside you. The small, unexpected act of kindness towards the old pensioner is a strange, confusing note in this grim symphony. You tell yourself, it's just for a night or two. Just until you find work. You'll be gone soon. You lie back on the floor, the damp earth cold beneath you, the sounds of the dying city above, and the coughing men below lulling you into an uneasy, anxious sleep. You awaken to a chorus of coughing. The cellar is freezing, the feeble candlelight of last night, long since extinguished, replaced by a dim, grey, and dusty light filtering in from the street-level grates. Your body is a map of new aches. The damp earth has seeped a chill deep into your bones, and the straw on your palate, which you now see in the daylight is alive with its own small, skittering ecosystem, has done little to cushion you. You sit up, your head thick and heavy, the smell of the room, a potent, sour mix of unwashed bodies, stale whiskey, and human waste, flooding your senses. You push yourself to your feet, a young, anonymous ghost in a room of the half-living. You need warmth. You need to escape the tomb of the cellar. You make your way up the stone steps, your hand on the rough, damp wall, and push open the door into the common room. The difference is immediate. The common room is alive. A great, smoky peat fire roars in the hearth, casting a warm, orange glow that battles the grey morning. The air here is still thick, but it's a different kind of thickness. A fog of wood smoke, roasting meat, and the sharp, not unpleasant smell of cheap whiskey. The room is loud, filled with the boisterous, chaotic energy of people starting their day. And at the centre of it all, seated at a heavy wooden table near the fire, are the landlords. This is their court, their throne room, and they are presiding over the morning's business. William Hare, your landlord, is already drinking. A mug of what looks like ale, or perhaps something stronger, is in his hand. His eyes are sharp, quick, and alive, missing nothing. He's in a heated, though not unfriendly, argument with a lodger over a few pennies of rent, his voice a quick, shrewd, Irish lilt. He is a man who understands the brutal arithmetic of poverty. Every penny counts, and he will have his due. Beside him, and in many ways his equal, is his wife, Margaret Laird. She is a strong, hard-faced woman, her sleeves rolled up, her arms thick. She is the one managing the pot on the fire, ladling out a thin, watery porridge into wooden bowls, collecting the coins for it with a grim efficiency. While Hare is the shrewd mind, she is the enforcer, her sharp tongue and imposing presence keeping the rowdier lodgers in line, and with them, as if they were part of the same family, are their two constant companions. William Burke is a large, physically powerful man, his broad shoulders and thick hands suggesting a life of hard labour. He works as a cobbler, and even now he has a piece of leather and a tool in his hand, idly mending a shoe as he talks. But what strikes you is his face. It's not the grim, sullen face of a brute. It's quick-witted, expressive, and framed by a shock of unruly hair. He is telling a story, a wild, improbable tale, and the other three are roaring with laughter. He has the easy, dangerous charm of a natural-born ringleader. Next to him sits his partner, Helen MacDougall. She is quieter than Margaret, her face holding a kind of weary, watchful intelligence. She nurses a small glass of gin, a thin clay pipe in her other hand, its smoke curling up around her head. She watches the room, her eyes moving, and occasionally she says a few low, sharp words that make Burke laugh. She and Margaret operate as a seamless team, a pair of tough, pragmatic women who have clearly learned to navigate this harsh, male-dominated world. This is the inner circle, the family. They are loud, they are coarse, they are drinking before noon, but in the cold, unforgiving world of the old town, they are also a centre of gravity. They are a loud, chaotic, and functioning unit. They are survivors. You take your small piece of bread, your rent has not entitled you to the porridge, and find a spot on a bench in the shadows, as far from them as possible, but close enough to the fire to feel its warmth. You watch them. Their conversation is a blur of thick accents, of local gossip, of complaints about the city guard, of rough, vulgar jokes. They are, you realize, just like 1,000 other poor, struggling families in this city. They are fighting to survive, using what little they have to get by. Their lodging house, their small trade in whiskey, it is all part of the same grim daily battle. Then, your name is called. James? Is it? It's Margaret Hare, her voice sharp. You nod. The old man Donald, in the cellar, she says. He's still wheezing. Take this down to him. She hands you a small steaming cup of what looks like weak tea, perhaps with a splash of gin in it, and tell him he's to pay his due by week's end, or he's out. Sickness or no. You take the cup, surprised by the small, gruff act of charity. You deliver it to old Donald in the cold darkness of the cellar, who takes it with a trembling, grateful hand. When you return to the common room, the family is still at their table. Their mood has shifted. They are no longer joking. They are leaning in, their voices low, their conversation now a quiet, intense and serious buzz. You catch a few words. The colleges, £7, fresh. You assume they are talking about some local news, some rumour from the medical schools. Burke looks up and sees you watching. His jovial mask drops for a split second, and his eyes become cold, appraising, and utterly empty. It is a look of such sudden, predatory calculation that it stops your breath. Then, just as quickly, the mask is back. He winks at you, a broad, friendly, meaningless gesture. Warm yourself, lad, he booms. It's a cold world out there. You turn away, a small shiver running down your spine that has nothing to do with the cold. You huddle closer to the fire, deeply unsettled. You tell yourself you are just tired, that you are seeing ghosts where there are only rough, hard-drinking people. Their appearance is mundane, their worries are familiar, their vices are the common currency of the poor, and yet, that look, that cold, appraising, butcher's look in Burke's eyes. You try to push the feeling away. You are just a lodger, and they are your landlords. You are all just survivors, trying to get by. You have no idea how true that really is. The days in Tanner's Close begin to blur, one blending into the next, defined by the same grim routine. You wake in the cold, damp cellar, your body aching, and join the shuffling line of other lodgers for a cup of thin, watery porridge from Margaret Hare's pot, a luxury you can only afford on days you find a few hours of work hauling crates at the market. Your life, and the lives of everyone around you, is a constant, desperate search for the few pennies needed for a bed and a bowl of food. You start to learn the faces, if not the names, of the other people who inhabit this subterranean world. They are the city's ghosts, the forgotten, the transient. There are a few regulars like yourself who have become semi-permanent fixtures in Hare's cellar, but most are just passing through, shadows who appear for a night or two and then vanish back into the city's anonymity. There are weary-faced women travelling alone, their possessions in a single small bundle. There are rough-handed labourers who speak in a dozen different accents, following the promise of work from one construction site to the next. There are beggars, who spend their days in the richer parts of the new town, returning at night with their meagre earnings. There is a fragile, unspoken sense of community here, born not of friendship, but of shared misery. You might share a scrap of tobacco with another man, or huddle together by the fire for warmth, exchanging small, quiet stories of your past lives, of the homes and families you left behind. It is a community of the invisible, a fraternity of the unmissed. You are all profoundly, desperately alone, together. In this sea of transient faces, one figure becomes a constant. Old Donald, the army pensioner. He is a fixture in the warmest corner of the cellar, closest to the hearth. He is a frail man, his body stooped, his hands gnarled with age. He is plagued by a deep, wheezing cough, and his legs are swollen. A condition you hear the women whisper is dropsy. Unlike the others, he is not just passing through, he is here to die. He has a small but steady army pension, and every week you watch him hand over almost all of it to William Hare for the simple, profound privilege of a permanent spot by the fire and a daily measure of whiskey and porridge. You find yourself drawn to him. He is quiet, but his eyes are clear, and he seems to carry a different, more dignified air than the other lodgers. One cold evening, you find him struggling, his hands shaking too badly from his cough to light his clay pipe. You light a splinter of wood from the fire and hold it for him. He nods, his gratitude palpable. He begins to talk, his voice a low, wheezing rasp. He tells you of his life as a soldier, of campaigns in faraway lands, of battles you have only read about on broadsheets. He speaks of a family he once had, now long gone. He is a man with a story, a history, a life. He is not just another anonymous shadow in the cellar. This is a hard place, lad, he whispers to you, his eyes on the fire. But a man must have a roof. Hare. He's a hard man, but he keeps his word. A warm fire is worth the pennies. You watch as Margaret Hare brings him his nightly cup of gin, her gesture, as you saw before, surprisingly gentle. "Drink it down, old man," she says, her voice rough. "It'll warm your bones." You sit with him for a while, sharing the small circle of warmth. His presence, his stories make the grim cellar feel almost human, almost like a home. You see the rough kindness he is shown by the landlords, and it reassures you. You had been unsettled by Hare and Burke, by their loud, drunken energy. But you see now that even they, in their own gruff way, are capable of a simple human kindness towards a dying old soldier. This fragile sense of community is a small flickering candle in the overwhelming darkness. But you forget that in this world, everyone is isolated. You forget that a man like old Donald, with no family to check on him, no friends to ask after him, is the most vulnerable man in the city. You see a dying pensioner being cared for. Hare and Burke, you will soon learn, are looking at the same man, and they are beginning to see something else entirely, a business opportunity. November 1827. The weather has turned, and a bitter, freezing rain now sweeps through the narrow closes of the old town. The cellar of Hare's lodging house has become a truly miserable place. The dampness from the earthen floor seems to rise up to meet the cold that drips from the stone ceiling. The room is a chorus of rattling coughs, but no cough is as deep, as persistent, or as final-sounding as old Donald's. You have come to know the old army pensioner in the past weeks. You have shared scraps of bread with him, and in return, he has shared the small, flickering embers of his life's memories, stories of battles in faraway lands, of a life lived with a kind of rough, simple honor that feels completely absent in this place. He is a good man, you have decided. A man who deserves better than to die in a damp cellar. His only company, a room full of strangers. His health is failing fast. The dropsy, the swelling in his legs has worsened, and his breathing has become a shallow, wet, agonizing rasp that provides a constant, grim soundtrack to the long nights. You watch as Margaret Hare and Helen MacDougall continue to bring him his gin and watery porridge, their gestures a strange mix of rough-spun kindness and cold landlord-like duty. Then, one morning, you are awakened by a new sound: silence. You sit up in the darkness of the pre-dawn cellar. The usual symphony of coughing and snoring is different. The deep, rhythmic, rasping breath of old Donald is gone. The silence he leaves behind is vast, cold, and heavy. A man closer to his corner stirs, then strikes a match, the sudden flare of light illuminating his own worried face. He crawls over to the old soldier's pallet. He touches Donald's shoulder. "He's cold," the man whispers, his voice loud in the sudden, terrible quiet. Stone cold. The old man's gone. A brief, somber hush falls over the cellar. For the people here, death is not a stranger. It is a familiar, ever-present neighbour. The lodgers who are awake cross themselves. Some murmur a small prayer. It is a sad, quiet, but wholly unremarkable event. Another pauper has died. The parish will be called. A cheap coffin will be provided. The world will move on. Someone goes up to the common room to wake the landlords. You hear heavy footsteps, and William Hare appears at the top of the cellar steps, holding a candle, his face a mask of annoyance at being woken. "What is it?" he grunts. "What's all the fuss?" "It's old Donald, Mr. Hare," says the man who found him. He's passed in the night." You watch Hare's face in the flickering candlelight, expecting to see what? Pity? Sadness? A respectful solemnity? You see none of these. Hare's face contorts, but not with grief. It is a sudden, sharp, and ugly mask of pure, unadulterated anger. "Dead?" he snarls. His Irish lilt suddenly sharp and venomous. He pushes past the man and stomps over to Donald's pallet. He does not check for a pulse. He does not close the old man's eyes. He immediately begins to rifle through the dead man's meagre possessions, a small, worn cloth bundle. He finds nothing but a few scraps of cloth and an old wooden pipe. "Where is it?" Hare hisses, his voice a low, furious growl. He turns to the other lodgers. "Where's his money? He was due his pension." No one answers. "He owes me." Hare suddenly roars, his voice exploding in the small, damp space. "He owes me £4, £4 in rent, and he dares to die in my house, owing me £4. You are stunned into silence. The sheer, naked, financial rage of the man is shocking. He is not mourning a man, he is cursing a failed investment. He storms around the small cellar, kicking at a loose stone, his face a dark cloud of fury. The normal, sad event of a pauper's death has been violently overshadowed by this purely financial, greedy, and almost inhuman reaction. Hare then storms out of the cellar, his heavy boots pounding up the steps. You are left in the quiet, awkward presence of the dead man, the air still vibrating with your landlord's anger. Later that day, the parish coffin, a simple, cheap pine box, is delivered. It is placed in the cellar, and Donald's body is unceremoniously laid inside. But the coffin is not sealed. It is not taken away. You retreat to the relative warmth of the common room fire, deeply unsettled. You see Hare through the doorway, in the back room, and he is no longer angry. He is in a low, intense, and strangely excited conversation with William Burke. Their heads are bent close together. You cannot hear their words, but you see the sharp, calculating look in Hare's eyes. You see Burke, the jovial, charming brute, listening intently. He nods, a slow, appraising, and thoughtful expression on his face. You turn back to the fire, a cold, new kind of unease settling upon you. You try to make sense of what you've seen. Hare's rage over the £4 was strange enough, but this new, quiet, scheming energy is something else. What could they be discussing with such intensity? You look at the cellar door, where the body of old Donald lies in its open coffin. You tell yourself it is none of your business, but you cannot shake the feeling that the old pensioner, even in death, has somehow become a central part of a new and dark calculation. The day after old Donald's death is not one of mourning. It is a day of tense, quiet, and deeply strange activity. The cheap parish coffin, a simple pine box, sits in the corner of the cellar, a grim, silent presence. The other lodgers, wary of death, avoid that corner of the room, leaving you to huddle on your straw pallet, a silent, nervous witness to what happens next. You are pretending to be asleep, your coat pulled over your head, when you hear them enter the cellar. William Hare and William Burke. They are not speaking in their usual loud, boisterous voices. Their words are low, conspiratorial, urgent whispers. "The undertaker will be here before noon," Hare mutters. "We have to be quick." "And you're sure they'll take it?" Burke asks, his voice a low rumble. "They'll take it," Hare says with a sudden, sharp confidence. £7.10, they say. More than he owed me. Now, help me. You risk a glance through a gap in your coat. You expect to see them preparing Donald's body for the coffin. Instead, you see something that makes no sense. Burke has returned from the yard with a large, damp sack. The sharp, acidic smell of tanner's bark from the nearby workshops fills the small room. You watch, your mind struggling to understand, as they begin to fill the pine coffin with this heavy, useless bark. They pack it down layer by layer, their movements quick and businesslike. This is not grief. This is not a ritual. This is a work. Your confusion turns to a cold, prickling horror as they finally turn to old Donald's body, still lying on his pallet, his eyes closed, his face a pale, waxy grey. With a rough grunt of effort, they lift the frail corpse. There is no prayer, no moment of respect. They fold the stiff limbs, force the body into a large, coarse canvas sack, and pull the drawstring tight. It is a package. You squeeze your eyes shut, your heart hammering so hard, you are sure they can hear it. This is wrong. This is a desecration. You've heard stories whispered in the taverns of the resurrection men, the ghouls who haunt the city's churchyards, digging up the dead to sell to the anatomy schools. But this is different. This is happening in your own home. You hear the scrape of wood on wood. You hear the sound of a hammer, sharp and final. Bang, bang, bang. The sound echoes in the small cellar. They are nailing the bark-filled coffin shut. They are creating a decoy, a lie for the parish undertaker. They wait. You can hear their heavy breathing in the silence. They are waiting for the right moment. You hear the sounds of the other lodgers stirring in the common room above. "Now," Hare whispers, while they're busy with the porridge. You hear the scrape of the heavy sack being dragged across the earthen floor. You hear the back door to the closed creek open and then shut. They are gone. They have smuggled their grim cargo out into the morning light of the city. You are left alone in the cellar. The only things in the room are you, the other sleeping lodgers, and the sealed pine coffin that you know is an empty, fraudulent box of bark. The air smells of sawdust, damp earth, and the lingering tang of the tannery. You try to make sense of it. Hare's rage over the £4, the sudden, secretive plan, the sale. He sold him? He sold a man's body? The thought is so monstrous, so far beyond your understanding of the world, that your mind shies away from it. But what other explanation could there be? You tell yourself it was a one-time act, a desperate, criminal solution to a financial problem, a way to reclaim a debt from a dead man. It's over. But as you lie there, staring at the fake coffin in the gloom, a new, colder, and more terrible thought surfaces. This wasn't just a solution. This was a discovery, and it looked far, far too easy. You spend the rest of the morning in a state of suspended, fearful animation. You stay in the cold cellar, as far from the bark-filled coffin as you can get, your mind replaying the grim, methodical work of Burke and Hare. You feel like an accomplice, a silent witness to a profound and secret sacrilege. Every creak of the floorboards above makes you jump, your nerves roar. Around noon, you hear the heavy, formal tramp of boots in the common room. The parish undertaker and his men have arrived. You hear William Hare's voice, now a mask of feigned, sombre grief. "Aye, a sad business," he says, his Irish lilt thick with false sorrow. "A good man, Donald. At least he'll have a proper Christian burial." You watch from the shadows of the cellar stairs as two men descend, their faces grim and professional. They do not seem to notice the strange, acidic smell of the tannery bark. They are just men, doing a job. They lift the pine box, grunting at its unexpected weight, a weight Hare and Burke had so cleverly provided. They slide the lid on, hammer it shut with a few final-sounding bangs, and carry the coffin up the steps and out into the daylight. You are left in the empty cellar, the air still smelling of bark, the pallet where old Donald died, now conspicuously empty. The perfect crime, you realize, has just been completed. The house falls into its usual midday lull. The other lodgers are out, seeking work or begging. You are alone with your unsettling secret, huddled by the common room's low fire, your stomach aching with a hunger that now feels mixed with a kind of moral sickness. Late in the afternoon, the front door of the lodging house bursts open, and they return. William Burke and William Hare. The change in them is immediate and astonishing. The tense conspiratorial whispers of the morning are gone, replaced by a loud, boisterous, and almost manic energy. They are not just pleased, they are triumphant. Hare, his eyes glittering, slaps a heavy leather pouch onto the main table. It lands with a solid, metallic thud, a sound you have never heard in this house, the unmistakable, heavy sound of real money. "Margaret! Helen!" Hare roars, his voice booming. "We've done it, girls. We've done it. Go to the market. Get the best, a joint of beef, and pies. And none of that cheap ale will have whiskey tonight." Margaret Hare and Helen MacDougall, who you now realize must have been in on the plan, let out whoops of genuine, unrestrained joy. They don't ask what happened. They already know. They grab their shawls and rush out the door, their faces lit with a greedy, shared excitement. Burke, meanwhile, turns his attention to the hearth. The fire, usually a low, smouldering pile of peat, is given new life. He tosses on log after precious log of real, dry firewood, a luxury you haven't seen since your arrival. The fire roars up the chimney, a great, bright, welcoming blaze that fills the dark, smoky room with a sudden, cheerful light. He then goes to a hidden stash and pulls out a bottle of whiskey, a rare and expensive drink. "Here, lad," Burke says, turning to you with a broad, gap-toothed grin. He seems to have forgotten his cold, appraising stare from the day before. He is just a man in a celebratory mood. He pours a splash of the sharp-smelling spirit into a cup. "A taste for ye. We're all rich tonight." You take a hesitant sip. The whiskey is fire and smoke, a liquid heat that burns its way down to your empty, aching stomach. You cough, and Burke laughs, a great, booming sound. The house, usually so grim and starved for any comfort, is suddenly, jarringly transformed. It is no longer a cold, dark, whispering place. It is a beacon of light, warmth, and sound. The women return, their arms laden, and the feast begins. A large joint of beef is set to roast over the roaring fire, its rich, fatty smell filling the room, a scent so wonderful it makes you dizzy. There are meat pies, fresh bread, and more bottles of whiskey and gin. As the other lodgers return from the cold streets, they are met not with the usual demand for rent, but with a generous, inexplicable invitation. "Eat, drink." Hare roars, his face already flushed with alcohol. It's a lucky day for the House of Hare. The lodgers, confused but delighted by this sudden miraculous turn of fortune, join the party. The small common room fills with the sound of laughter, of stamping feet, of a badly sung drinking song. It is a wild, coarse, and joyous celebration. You sit in your corner, the small cup of whiskey in your hand, a piece of fresh, warm bread in the other. You are warm, you are not hungry, but you cannot join the celebration. You watch the family Burke, Hare, Margaret, and Helen at the centre of it all. They are the loudest, the most generous, the most jubilant. They are feasting, and you know with a cold, sickening certainty what paid for this meal. Every bite of the warm bread tastes like the damp earth of the cellar. Every laugh sounds like the scrape of a body being dragged in the dark. The bright, cheerful fire seems to cast the same flickering, grotesque shadows you saw in the cellar that morning. You slip away from the party, the noise of it following you as you descend the steps to the cold, dark cellar. The party rages on above you, the floorboards thumping with their stamping, dancing feet. You lie on your straw pallet, pulling your thin coat over your head, trying to block out the sound. You know you have just witnessed something terrible, a profound shift. Hare's anger over his £4 has been transformed into the joy of £7.10. This isn't the end of a grim chapter. It's the beginning of a new, horrific trade. As you drift into an uneasy sleep, you hear a final, loud exchange from the common room. Hare's drunken voice, slurred but clear. £7! Easier than a month of cobbling, eh, Willie? And then, Burke's deep, booming laugh echoes down into the darkness. The wild, chaotic party in the common room eventually burns itself out, like a fire consuming its own fuel. The next morning, the house is grim again. The money is gone, spent on a single night's oblivion. The beef has been eaten. The whiskey bottles are empty. The brief, jarring prosperity has vanished, leaving the cold, damp, and desperate reality of Tanner's Close in its place. The hunger has returned, and with it, a new, expectant tension. You see Hare and Burke watching the remaining lodgers, their eyes no longer those of landlords, but of men assessing a resource. You did not follow them on their grim errand with old Donald's body. You did not know its final destination. But to understand the engine that drove this terrible new trade, to understand why this horror was allowed to happen, we must leave you in the shadows of the lodging house and follow that canvas sack. The journey of Burke and Hare takes them out of the squalid, medieval labyrinth of the old town and into the rational, modern, and respectable world of the new town. Their destination is Surgeons Square, the epicenter of global medical science. Here, the air does not smell of filth and gin. It smells of carbolic, of preserving spirits, and of intellectual ambition. They are led into a vast, tiered anatomical theatre, its wooden benches rising in steep circles around a central marble dissection slab. In this room, the city's most brilliant young minds gather to learn the secrets of the human body, a science that can only be taught through the study of the dead. And the master of this theatre is Dr. Robert Knox. He is not a shadowy back-alley butcher. He is a star, the most popular and charismatic anatomist in Edinburgh. He is a fellow of the Royal Society, a brilliant scientist, and a man whose lectures are so popular that students riot for a ticket. He is a man of progress, of the Enlightenment, constantly frustrated by the ignorant, archaic laws that provide only 1 or 2 executed criminals a year for his hundreds of students. He needs bodies. He needs them badly. Into this world of high science, Burke and Hare arrive, 2 rough, whiskey-soaked figures, dragging their heavy sack. Dr. Knox's assistants, his janitors, handle the transaction with a practiced, discreet efficiency. The sack is brought to the doctor. He inspects the merchandise, and he is delighted. The bodies supplied by the resurrection men, the grave robbers, are always a disappointment. They are days old, already decaying, their features bloated, the flesh ruined by the crude shovels used to exhume them. But this is different. The body of old Donald is fresh. It is unmarked. It is perfect. Dr. Knox, a man of profound anatomical curiosity, does not ask how they acquired such a pristine specimen. He does not ask why this old man has no signs of a long burial. He simply sees a perfect tool for his science, and a supplier who can deliver it. Splendid, he declares, his voice crisp and authoritative. A truly fine example. Gentlemen, my students and I are in your debt. He pays them the full, handsome sum of £7.10. It is a fortune, more money than they have ever seen in one place. As his assistants take the body, Knox gives his new suppliers a final, encouraging instruction. My classes are large, gentlemen. The pursuit of medical knowledge is a noble and demanding one. Should you find any other such specimens, you will find me a most generous and undiscerning customer. The words hang in the air. Undiscerning. It is a perfectly chosen word. It is a contract, a promise. Do not tell me how you get them. Just bring them, and you will be rewarded. The transaction is complete. Burke and Hare, their pockets heavy, their minds reeling with the simplicity of it all, walk back out into the street, leaving the world of science behind. Back in Tanner's Close, you are in the cellar, trying to mend a tear in your thin coat. You hear the front door of the common room open. You hear the familiar, boisterous laugh of William Burke. The party has returned. You hear the clink of fresh coins on the table, the gurgle of a newly bought bottle of whiskey, the sound of Margaret Hare's sharp, excited laughter. You huddle in the cold, your blood running colder still. The first transaction was not a desperate, one-time act. It was a successful business proposal. They have found a customer, a wealthy, respectable, and endlessly hungry customer who is willing to pay a fortune for their product, no questions asked. The grim poverty that defined this house has been broken by a dark and terrible new prosperity. You realize with a dawning, sickening horror that Hare and Burke are no longer just landlords. They are now in business, and the only commodity they have left to sell is you. The brief, chaotic celebration funded by old Donald's body is a distant, feverish memory. The money, spent as quickly as it was earned on a torrent of whiskey and meat, is gone. The house in Tanner's Close has reverted to its natural state, cold, hungry, and desperate. The fire in the common room is once again a low, smouldering pile of peat, giving off more smoke than warmth. The lodgers are back to their diet of thin porridge and stale bread, their faces etched with the familiar, weary lines of poverty. But something in the house has changed, irrevocably. The atmosphere is no longer just one of grim endurance. It is now charged with a new, dark, and predatory energy. You feel it most from William Hare and William Burke. They are no longer just landlords or labourers. They are men who have tasted a fortune, men who have discovered a simple, miraculous solution to their poverty. They are hunters who have found a new kind of prey, and now they are impatient for the next hunt. You watch them as they pace the common room, their eyes sharp and appraising. Every time a new potential lodger stumbles in from the street, an old beggar, a frail-looking woman, a drunkard, you see the same cold, calculating look in their eyes. The look of a butcher assessing livestock. But the right product is hard to find. Then a new lodger arrives. He is the opposite of old Donald. His name is Joseph, a miller from the countryside, a man in the prime of his life. He is broad-shouldered and strong, his face weathered by the sun and wind, not by gin and squalor. He is simply passing through Edinburgh, looking for work at the great mills in Leith. He has a few coins, and he pays Hare for a week's lodging in the cellar. His presence seems to disappoint Hare. This is a man of strength, a man who will be noticed, a man with a destination. He is not the ideal, anonymous, and easily forgotten victim, but the fortunes of Tanner's Close are fickle. After 3 days of living in the damp, freezing and disease-ridden air of the cellar, the miller's robust health fails. He is not accustomed to the filth of the city. He develops a fever, a deep, rattling cough that shakes his strong frame. Within a day, he is too weak to leave his straw pallet, his body, once so powerful, now trembling with a violent chill. This is a common, tragic story in the cellar. A man arrives with his health, and the house takes it from him. Your own reaction is one of fear and a familiar, weary pity. You keep your distance, as does everyone else. Sickness in this cramped space is a death sentence, and no one wants to be the next to catch it. You watch, expecting to see the usual grim process of a man dying in the dark. But then you see the reaction of Hare and Burke, and it is something entirely new. There is no sign of the gruff, minimal kindness Margaret Hare showed to old Donald. There is no offer of a comforting cup of gin. Instead, there is only a strange, cold, and impatient interest. You see Hare standing at the top of the cellar steps, staring down at the sick man, his face a mask of pure, frustrated calculation. He is not looking at a suffering human being. He is looking at a commodity that is taking too long to be ready for market. "He's a strong one," you overhear Hare mutter to Burke in the common room, "but this fever is taking its time. Dr. Knox pays for fresh, Willie. He's no use to us if he rots first." Their impatience becomes a tangible, menacing presence in the house. They no longer avoid the sick man, they hover. You watch, horrified, as Burke, in a grotesque parody of care, sits by the miller's side, his voice full of the same false, boisterous charm he uses in the pub. "Ah, you're looking poorly, Joseph, my friend," Burke says, his large hand resting on the miller's shoulder. "A fever like that needs a good, strong drink to burn it out. Let me fetch you a dram." On the house, he brings a large cup of raw whiskey, and he doesn't just offer it, he presses it on the sick man. "Drink it down, lad," he coaxes, lifting the miller's head. "It's the best medicine. Sleep it off." Joseph, delirious and too weak to argue, drinks. The whiskey, instead of helping, seems to make the fever worse, his breathing more ragged. You watch this scene from the shadows, a cold, sickening realization dawning on you. This is not kindness. This is not even the cold impatience you first suspected. This is something new. This is an experiment. They are not just waiting for the miller to die. They are helping him along. You lie on your pallet that night, the cellar filled with the miller's low, delirious groans. The line between scavenging a body and creating one, a line you thought was so clear and absolute, is beginning to blur. The normal human empathy for the sick, the most basic of instincts, has been utterly corrupted by the taste of profit. They are no longer waiting for death. They are becoming its partners. And as you listen to the miller's ragged breathing, you have a terrible, sinking feeling that they are about to become its masters. November 1827, the sick miller Joseph has lingered for another day, and then another. This is not the swift, simple, and profitable end that old Donald provided. This is an inconvenience. The £7.10 from that first transaction have long since vanished into a haze of whiskey and mutton, and the cold, familiar grip of poverty has returned to the lodging house. The house is hungry again, and the landlords are impatient. You see the shift in William Hare and William Burke. Their brief, gruff kindness toward the sick miller has evaporated, replaced by a cold, appraising impatience. They are no longer waiting for nature to take its course. They are discussing, in low, urgent whispers, how to hasten it. That evening, the decision is made. You are in the dark, freezing cellar, trying to find some warmth by burrowing into your straw pallet. Most of the other lodgers are out, likely at the taverns. It is just you, the miller coughing weakly in his bed, and one or two others lost in a drunken sleep. The cellar door creaks open, casting a long, wavering rectangle of light down the steps. Burke and Hare enter. But this time, they are not angry or sullen. They are in a strange, almost festive mood. Burke is carrying a clay bottle of whiskey. "James!" Hare calls to you, his voice overly cheerful. The lad Joseph is shivering. We're to build up the fire for him, make the place warm. You watch, your suspicion a cold knot in your stomach as they toss precious wood onto the small fire, bringing it to a roaring, cheerful blaze that illuminates the damp, wretched room. And a dram for the sick man. Burke booms, pulling the cork from the bottle. The best medicine for a fever. They move to the miller's bedside. Joseph is delirious, his eyes unfocused, his body trembling. He barely seems to register their presence. "Come on now, Joseph," my friend Burke coaxes, lifting the man's head with a powerful, almost tender hand. "A drop of the good stuff. It'll put the life right back in ye. Or put ye to a sound sleep, one of the two." They press the bottle to his lips. The miller, too weak to resist, swallows. They give him another drink, and then another. It is not an act of kindness. It is a methodical, purposeful intoxication. They are not nursing him. They are incapacitating him. You watch this grotesque parody of care, your heart hammering so hard you are afraid they will hear it. You pull your thin blanket higher, squeezing your eyes shut, pretending to be fast asleep. You are a terrified, silent witness in a tomb. You hear them whispering. "Is he under?" Hare asks. "Aye," Burke rumbles. "He's as good as gone." You lie frozen, every nerve in your body screaming. You hear a rustle of movement, a heavy, shuffling sound. You risk opening your eyes a sliver. The fire is bright, casting huge, monstrous shadows on the wall. You see Hare, his face a mask of pure, clinical concentration, pick up the miller's own thin, straw-filled pillow. He holds it for a moment. Then, he places it over Joseph's face, pressing down firmly, muffling any sound. At the same instant, you see Burke move. He doesn't use a knife. He doesn't use his hands. He, a man of nearly 200 pounds, simply lies down, bracing his hands on the bedstead and placing his full, crushing body weight onto the miller's chest. It is the sound that will haunt your nightmares for the rest of your life. There is no loud cry, no dramatic struggle, just a brief, terrible, muffled gasp. A frantic, desperate kicking of feet against the straw mattress that lasts only a few seconds. A final, shuddering sigh that seems to be forced from the man's very soul. And then, just the sound of the two men's heavy, rhythmic breathing in the sudden, awful silence. They stay like that for a long, unmoving minute. Then, Burke, with a low grunt, pushes himself up. Hare removes the pillow. Joseph is perfectly still. Burke leans down, his ear close to the man's chest. He nods once, done. They do not look horrified. They do not look guilty. They look relieved. They look like two craftsmen who have just completed a difficult and tiring piece of work. "Well," Hare says, wiping a bead of sweat from his brow, "that's that. He was a strong one, Willie. Put up a bit of a fight." He then walks over, picks up the whiskey bottle, and takes a long, satisfied drink. "We'll leave him till morning. No point in rousing Dr. Knox at this hour. He'll keep." You lie on your pallet, every muscle in your body locked in a state of pure, primal terror. You do not move. You barely breathe. You are just a few feet away from a murdered man, and you are in a locked cellar with his murderers. You have just witnessed the line being crossed. This was not a desperate, passionate crime. This was a methodical, efficient, and horrifyingly clean invention. They had found a way. You realize, with a dawning, sickening horror, that they have just created the perfect commodity. A body with no marks of violence, no stab wounds, no telltale bruises on the throat. A corpse that, to all the world, would look exactly like a man who had simply succumbed to his fever in the night. They had not just committed a murder. They had just perfected their business. Here is Chapter 11. Chapter 11. The luring. The money from the miller's body lasts for a surprisingly long time. The common room of the lodging house is, for a brief, strange period, a place of plenty. The fire is always high, the whiskey is cheap and plentiful, and the family Burke, Hare, Margaret, and Helen are generous, their laughter loud, their spirits high. They are a small, tight-lipped crew that has discovered a shared, dark secret to prosperity. But you know that this feast is a temporary one. The money is spent as quickly as it is earned, and the high status, demanding Dr. Knox is always waiting for more specimens. As the last of the coins from the miller dwindle, the mood in the house shifts. The whiskey bottles are empty, the fire burns low, and the old familiar chill of poverty returns. With it comes the tension. You see Hare and Burke in their corner, their conversations once again low, intense, and urgent. They are no longer just landlords. They are businessmen, and their business is in a lull. You begin to notice a new pattern. The men, Burke and Hare, seem to stay closer to home, drinking and guarding the house. It is the women who now take the lead. They are the new hunters. You watch Margaret Hare and Helen MacDougall as they prepare to go out in the evening. They are not dressed for a simple errand. They put on their best, if still ragged, shawls. Margaret, her face hard and shrewd, has a quick, appraising eye. Helen, quieter and more watchful, can muster a look of gentle, convincing sympathy. They are a perfect team. They leave the lodging house and walk, not towards the respectable shops, but into the deepest, poorest, and most desperate closes of the old town. You, with your own errands to run, have seen them at their work, though you pretend not to. They move through the grass market, scanning the crowds of beggars, the lone elderly women selling matches, the disoriented travellers. They are not looking for friends, they are shopping. One evening, you are huddled by the common room fire, trying to get some warmth into your bones, when the door opens. Margaret and Helen enter, their faces cheerful, their arms linked with a small, elderly woman. She is perhaps in her 60s, her face a map of weary wrinkles, her clothes thin and respectable but worn to threads. She carries a small box, and you can smell the faint, sharp tang of salt from her clothes. She is Abigail Simpson, a salt seller from a nearby village, a transient traveller with nowhere to go. She is the perfect victim. Old, weak, a stranger in the city, with no family to miss her. "Ah, James, lad." Hare calls to you, his voice suddenly booming with a false welcoming cheer. "Look what the good wives have found. A poor soul chilled to the bone. We'll not have a body freezing when we've a warm fire, will we?" The scene that unfolds is a masterpiece of grotesque, predatory hospitality. You watch as Margaret Hare, a woman you have seen curse and fight with the strength of any man, becomes the picture of a concerned hostess. She settles Abigail in the best chair, closest to the fire. "You look frozen, dearie," she says, her voice thick with a sympathy that makes your skin crawl. "A drop of whiskey is what you need, to warm the blood." Abigail, her eyes wide with gratitude at this unexpected kindness, can barely speak. "Oh, thank you, ma'am. You are too good." Helen MacDougall sits beside her, listening with a look of rapt attention as Abigail tells her simple, sad story of a long walk and poor sales. Helen nods, her face a mask of compassion, occasionally patting the old woman's hand. And Burke is at his most magnificent. He is the charming, jovial host, telling a loud, funny story to the other lodgers, making the whole room feel like a party, a celebration. He raises his glass to Abigail. "To new friends," he booms, and the room echoes with the toast. You are a part of the scene, a silent figure in the corner, a cup of weak, watered-down gin in your hand, offered by Hare to make you part of the celebration. But you are not celebrating. You are watching a spider weave its web. The forced, aggressive nature of their kindness is terrifying. The whiskey is poured too freely. Their laughter is too loud. It is not hospitality. It is a performance. It is the luring. Abigail, starved for warmth and human kindness, blossoms in the sudden, bright heat of their attention. She laughs at Burke's jokes. She drinks the whiskey she is handed, her initial hesitance melting away. She is safe. She is with friends. After an hour, the old woman is thoroughly drunk, her head nodding, a happy, sleepy smile on her face. You watch as Helen MacDougall catches Hare's eye. A small, almost imperceptible nod is exchanged. Helen leans in towards Abigail. "You look tired, my love," she says, her voice soft. "You've had a long day. We have a quiet, warm bed for you in the back room. Let me help you lie down." She and Margaret help the old woman to her feet. Abigail, now completely trusting, leans on them, her body limp. They guide her slowly out of the common room and towards the small, isolated back bedroom where the miller had died. William Burke, his face still split in a wide, jovial grin, follows them, his large frame filling the doorway. He gives a final, friendly wink to the room at large, and then he closes the door behind him. The common room is quieter now, but not silent. Hare turns to the remaining lodgers. "Another drink, lads!" he shouts, his voice booming, a little too loud. He begins a new, rowdy song. The party continues, a deliberate, manufactured wall of noise. You sit frozen, your heart a cold, hard stone. You know exactly what is happening behind that closed door. The performance of kindness is over. The reality of the trap has just been sprung. You have come to understand that the house in Tanner's Close operates on two different economies. The first is the one you share with the other lodgers, a desperate, daily scrape for the few pennies needed for a straw pallet and a spoonful of porridge. The second is the secret, booming economy of the landlords. And that economy, you now know, is fed by the dead. After the murder of the miller and the grim, quiet disappearance of the salt seller, Abigail Simpson, the house is transformed. The brief, chaotic feast you witnessed after old Donald's body was sold becomes a near constant state of prosperity. There is always a fire roaring in the common room hearth. There is always the sharp, intoxicating smell of whiskey in the air. Burke and Hare, once just surly landlords, now carry themselves with the swagger of successful businessmen. They are generous, quick to offer a drink, their pockets heavy with coin from their frequent late-night deliveries to Surgeons Square. The murders have become a routine. They have become the house's terrible, secret heartbeat. It has happened so many times now that you can see the pattern, as clear and as predictable as a dark and bloody ritual. It is a chilling three-act play, performed again and again in the small, smoky theatre of the common room. It always begins with the women. You will see Margaret Hare and Helen MacDougall, their shawls pulled tight, their eyes sharp, slip out into the city's twilight. They are the hunters, the lures. An hour, maybe two, will pass. Then the front door will open, and they will return, their arms linked with the night's quarry. The victim is always the same, in all the ways that matter. Sometimes it is an old woman, her back bent, her mind perhaps clouded with age, grateful for the offer of a warm fire. Sometimes it is a young man from the countryside, his eyes wide with the confusion of the big city, his money already spent. But they are always, always alone. They are the anonymous, the transient, the unmissed. They are people, like you, who could vanish from the earth without a single soul to ask where they have gone. The second act is the party. The moment the new guest is seated, the house bursts into a loud, forced and terrifying cheer. Burke, the charming, boisterous host, will produce a bottle of whiskey. "A guest," he will roar. "We must drink to our new guest." The music starts. Perhaps a badly played fiddle or just the sound of men stamping their feet on the floorboards. The drink is poured with a heavy, generous hand. It is not hospitality. It is a tactical assault. The goal is to get the victim drunk, disoriented, and compliant as quickly as possible. The women are the most effective, sitting close, refilling the guest's cup, their laughter a little too loud, their kindness a little too bright. You, James, have learned what this sound means. The sound of a sudden loud party in Hare's common room is not a sound of joy. It is a death knell. You have learned to make yourself invisible. You slip away from the fire, retreating to the cold, damp safety of the cellar. You crawl onto your straw pallet, pulling your thin blanket over your head, and you pray. You pray for the party to end. You pray for the man or woman upstairs to simply pass out and be robbed, to be spared the final, terrible act. The third act comes late in the night. The singing and the stamping will, for a few brief, heart-stopping moments, fall silent. From your cellar you strain your ears. You hear a sudden, muffled sound from the room above. A chair scraping violently, a low, choked cry, the heavy, unmistakable thud of Burke's massive body moving with purpose. Then, just as quickly as it stopped, the singing roars back to life, louder, more frantic than before, a desperate, deliberate wall of sound to cover the final, quiet moments of the struggle. The next morning, the house is quiet, the air stale with the smell of spilled whiskey and cold ashes. The new lodger is gone. Oh, the old woman? Hare will say, his face a mask of bored innocence as he sweeps the floor. She left before dawn, said she had to meet a sister in Leith, a restless sort. Then you will see the grim, familiar preparations. The tea chest is brought up from the cellar, or a large canvas sack. You will hear the sounds of heavy, awkward movements from the back room, and then you will see Burke and Hare, their faces set in the grim, sober expressions of men on their way to a job, carry their heavy, strangely shaped cargo out into the morning light. You watch them go, and you are paralyzed. You are a prisoner of your own knowledge. To speak is to mark yourself as their next victim. To flee is to be a penniless, starving vagrant on the streets, with no guarantee you won't just be lured back by another innkeeper, or even by Burke and Hare themselves. So you stay. You and the few other permanent, terrified lodgers have become part of the dreadful routine. You are the silent, invisible audience for their weekly performance of death. You live in a house where the fire is always warm and the larder is always full, a small, prosperous island in a sea of poverty. But you know what fuels this prosperity. You eat the bread and drink the ale bought with the profits of murder. The mundane, repetitive nature of their evil has become your own. It is no longer a shocking, singular event. It is simply the way of the house. It is the routine. The routine has become a grim, predictable calendar of death. A stranger arrives. The whiskey flows. The party roars. The door to the back room closes. The next morning, Hare sweeps the floor, muttering a lie about an early departure, and you see him and Burke carrying another heavy tea chest or sack out into the morning mist. You have lost count of how many times you have witnessed this play. 3, 4? The murders are no longer a shocking secret, but the very foundation of the house's economy, and you are a part of it. You eat the bread bought with this blood money. You warm yourself by the fire fueled by its profits. This knowledge is a poison you must swallow every day. You have learned to make yourself small, invisible. You are the perfect lodger. Silent, obliging, never in the way. You retreat to the cellar, the safest place, as soon as the forced, predatory hospitality begins in the common room. You have mastered the art of being unnoticeable, a piece of furniture, a shadow on the wall. This, you believe, is your armor. The moment that shatters this fragile illusion of safety is small, almost meaningless. One afternoon you are in the common room, quietly mending a tear in your only coat. Hare and Burke are sitting by the fire, drinking and talking in low tones. You are not listening, your mind focused on the simple, methodical task of needle and thread. "We're low on funds again," you hear Hare say, his voice a low grumble. The last one didn't fetch as much. Knox is complaining about the quality. "Aye," Burke rumbles, "we'll need another soon. That old woman from the Canongate said she might come by, but I'm tired of waiting." There is a pause. The only sounds are the crackle of the fire and the drip of rain outside. Then, Burke's voice, closer, softer. What about him? You don't look up, but your blood turns to ice. Your fingers freeze on the needle. He is not talking about a stranger. He is not talking about a new lodger. The only other person in the room is you. The lad? James? Hare whispers back. You can feel their eyes on you. You force your hands to keep moving, to keep stitching, your heart hammering so hard against your ribs it feels like a trapped bird. Burke says. He's quiet. He's got no family we know of. No one to ask after him. He's been here weeks. Who'd miss him? He's young, but he's healthy. He'd fetch a good price. No, Hare says. But there is no morality in his voice, only a cold, practical calculation. Not yet. He's a good lodger. He pays his few pennies, and more. He's a witness. He's seen too much. If he vanishes, it might look suspicious. To the others, suspicious? Burke scoffs. The others are too drunk or too stupid to see their own feet. No. We use him, Hare says, his voice final. His being here makes it all seem normal. He's part of the house. We wait for a proper stranger. No need to spoil our own nest. The conversation drifts away, turning to a leaky barrel, to the price of gin. But you are no longer there. You are still sitting by the fire, but you are 1,000 miles away, trapped in a cold, airless void of pure terror. He's a witness. We use him. The terrible, horrifying truth of your situation settles upon you with a crushing physical weight. You were never just a lodger. You were never just an observer. You were, and are, a tool. Your silent presence, your frightened obedience, has been a convenience for them, a part of their performance of a normal lodging house. And you are also an asset in reserve. You are the next meal, kept on the shelf, waiting for a leaner time. The realization is a profound, fundamental shift. This cellar, this house, is not a shelter you are paying for. It is a cage you have willingly walked into. You are not a guest. You are inventory. You fit their victim profile perfectly. Young, poor, alone, and utterly, completely unmissed. From that moment on, your life changes. You are no longer just a suspicious lodger. You are a terrified prisoner, living every second on borrowed time. Every interaction is now laced with a cold, terrifying subtext. When Margaret Hare offers you an extra piece of bread, is it kindness, or is it the fattening of a pig before the slaughter? When Burke claps you on the shoulder with his heavy, jovial hand, is it friendship, or is he feeling the flesh on your bones? When Hare asks you where you went during the day, is it idle chat, or is he tracking your movements, ensuring you have no one on the outside who might come looking for you? You are now desperate to escape. The need to flee is a constant screaming command in your mind, but you are paralyzed by an even greater fear. How can you leave? If you simply pack your small, ragged bundle and announce your departure, what will they do? Will they see it as the act of a man who knows too much? A witness who is trying to get to the police? You know you cannot just walk out the door. To show any sign of fear, any hint of suspicion, any desire to leave would be to sign your own death warrant. It would make you a liability. And you know with a certainty that chills you to your soul what they do with liabilities. You are trapped. You must continue to play the part of the quiet, ignorant, and grateful lodger, all while knowing that the men you share a roof with are murderers, and that they have already discussed the price of your own corpse. By the spring of 1828, the routine has made Burke and Hare wealthy, bold, and appallingly reckless. The grim, careful planning of their first few murders has given way to an arrogant, almost casual confidence. Their business has been running for months without a single complication. The supply of anonymous, transient, and elderly poor is seemingly endless, and Dr. Knox's payments are always prompt. They have come to believe they are invincible, invisible masters of this dark trade. Your own life in the lodging house continues in a state of suspended terror. You have become a model of silence and obedience, a ghost in their machine. Your fear has not lessened, but it has become a cold, permanent part of your existence, a coat you can never take off. You watch them, you listen, and you pray that they continue to find their products in the streets so they have no need for the asset in their cellar. The man who will change everything is a familiar sight to the entire old town. His name is James Wilson, but everyone in Edinburgh knows him as Daft Jamie. He is 18 years old, with a profound intellectual disability and a noticeable, shuffling limp from a deformity in his feet. He is a harmless, almost childlike figure, known for his simple, friendly nature and his refusal to beg, preferring to earn a few pennies by running simple errands. He is, in short, a public character, a person known and in a simple way cared for by the community. He is the exact opposite of the anonymous victims Burke and Hare have preyed upon so far. One afternoon, you are in the common room when Helen MacDougall lures Jamie inside. He is hesitant, clearly uncomfortable, but she and Burke are a torrent of the false, aggressive hospitality you have come to know so well. "Come in, Jamie lad, come in. A dram for ye, on a cold day." Jamie is tempted, not by the whiskey, but by the simple offer of warmth and company. He sits by the fire, his familiar, innocent grin on his face, as Burke regales him with a loud, boisterous story. You watch this scene, a cold, sick feeling rising in your throat. This is a profound escalation. They are no longer hiding in the shadows. They are luring a well-known boy off the street in broad daylight. The usual grim play unfolds, but this time it is faster, more brazen. They ply Jamie with whiskey. He resists at first, but Burke's forceful charm is overwhelming. Within an hour, the boy is drunk and sleepy. Burke and Hare, with a simple, knowing glance, help him to the back room just as they did all the others. The door closes. The party in the common room continues, a little louder than before. The next morning, Jamie is gone. But this time, his absence is noticed. You are in the common room when Jamie's mother, a poor but fierce woman, bursts in. "Where is he?" she demands, her eyes scanning the room. "Where is my boy? He was seen coming in here." Hare meets her with a practiced, smooth lie. "Your boy?" "Aye. He was here, had a few drams with us like a gentleman, and left with a woman, happy as a king. Haven't seen I am since." The mother's eyes narrow. She knows her son. "He wouldn't," she says, her voice low and dangerous. "He wouldn't just leave. What did you do to him?" A small crowd begins to gather in the close, drawn by the shouting. For the first time, you see a flicker of genuine nervousness in Hare's shifty eyes. This is not a victim no one will ask after. This is a mother. This is a community. He and Margaret manage to push the woman out, but she leaves with a promise. "I'm going to the police. I'll find my boy." The killer's arrogant belief in their own anonymity has just crashed into the simple, powerful reality of a public victim. Their recklessness, born from months of easy success, has finally created a loose thread. You watch the woman storm away, and for the first time in months, you feel something other than pure, paralyzing terror. It is a tiny, fragile spark of hope. They have made a mistake. They have been seen. They have been noticed. The killers, you realize, have grown too comfortable, too arrogant. They believed their system was perfect, that their respectable customer, Dr. Knox, provided a shield of legitimacy. But they have forgotten the simple rules of the street. They have forgotten that even in the poorest closes of Edinburgh, some people are not invisible. And as you listen to the sudden, worried silence that has replaced the usual boisterous energy of your landlords, you wonder if the walls of this dark, murderous house are finally, after so long, beginning to close in. You do not follow Burke and Hare on their grim deliveries. You do not, and would never, have access to the grand, scholarly halls of the university. Your world remains the dark, smoky, and fearful confines of Tanner's Close. But the city of Edinburgh is a small, gossiping world, and for the first time, the secrets of the cellar are beginning to leak out. The story comes to you as a rumour, a piece of astonishing, terrifying gossip that ripples through the lodging house and the surrounding closes. It comes from a porter who works at the university, a man who knows some of Hare's drinking companions. He tells the story in a hushed, wide-eyed voice in the common room, and you listen from your dark corner, your blood running cold. The body of daft Jamie Wilson, he says, was delivered to the anatomy theatre of Dr. Robert Knox. It was laid out on the marble slab, ready for the afternoon's lecture, just like all the others. The students, hundreds of them, filed in and took their seats, their notebooks ready. Dr. Knox, a man famous for his brilliant theatrical lectures and his arrogant, dismissive wit, prepared to begin. But when the sheet was pulled back, a murmur ran through the lecture hall. Jamie, unlike the anonymous, elderly poor, was known. He was a public character. Many of the students, who lived and drank in the old town, recognized him instantly. "That's daft Jamie," one student called out. "I saw him in the grass market just 2 days ago." Another student, noting the body's lack of any burial shroud or coffinware, stood up and challenged the doctor directly. "How did he come here? He looks as if he's been murdered." The porter's story described the scene with a palpable tension. The entire lecture hall was in an uproar, the students on their feet, the no-questions-asked policy suddenly shattering. The respectable scientific world had come face to face with the grim criminal reality that supplied it. But Dr. Knox, a man whose arrogance was as legendary as his skill, did not flinch. He let the uproar continue for a moment, a thin, contemptuous smile on his face. "Quiet, gentlemen," he finally boomed. He scoffed at their concerns, dismissing them as childish sentimentality. He insisted the body was just another pauper delivered by the parish. "You are here to learn anatomy, gentlemen, not to play detective," he declared. "Your job is to study the human form, not to question how it arrives on my table. Now, sit down and let us begin." To silence the rumours and, more importantly, to destroy the evidence, Knox immediately began the dissection. But he did not begin with the torso, as was his custom. He started with the parts that were most recognizable. With a swift, practiced skill, he dismembered the head and, most damningly, the feet, the source of Jamie's familiar, shuffling limp. By the end of the lecture, daft Jamie was no longer a person. He was just a collection of neatly dissected parts. The evidence was gone. You listen to this story, and you watch Burke and Hare, who are also listening. They are trying to laugh it off, to dismiss it as the foolish gossip of students. But you see the new, sharp, and undeniable fear in their eyes. Their arrogance has been shaken. They have breached the unwritten rule. They took someone who would be missed. The no-questions-asked policy of their respectable customer, Dr. Knox, had been pushed to its limit. He had held up his end of the bargain. He had accepted the body, denied the truth, and destroyed the evidence. But the wall of secrecy had been cracked. The respectable world had, for a brief, dangerous moment, noticed. You retreat to your cellar pallet, the porter's story replaying in your mind. The killer's confident, almost magical, invincibility is gone. They are vulnerable. They can make mistakes. The outside world, which has been a distant, abstract concept, is suddenly pressing in. The student's suspicion, Dr. Knox's arrogant denial, Jamie's mother's cries for justice, they are all loose threads. You feel, for the first time, a tiny, dangerous spark of hope that this web of horror might, with just one more pull, begin to unravel. October 31st, 1828. All Hallows Eve. The city is cold, and the brief, terrifying notoriety from daft Jamie's disappearance has died down. Dr. Knox, after his brazen dissection, is once again demanding specimens. The money is gone. The hunger and the need have returned to Tanner's Close. William Burke and William Hare, made reckless by their long run of success, are hunting once more. That morning you are in the common room when Burke enters, his arm around a small elderly woman. Her name is Mary Doherty. She is Irish, like him, and has just arrived in Edinburgh searching for her son. She is a stranger to the city, weary from her journey. Burke, a master of predatory charm, has found her wandering, lost. He has put on his most comforting, familiar face, playing the part of the kind fellow countryman, promising her a warm fire, a hot meal, and help in finding her son. He has lured her back to the lodging house. But this time, the house is not empty. A few days prior, a new, respectable couple, Anne and James Gray, had taken a room. They are not like the other transient lodgers. They are sober, clean, and unfamiliar with the house's grim, unspoken routines. They are a new, unpredictable audience. You watch the scene, your heart in your throat. Burke and Hare seem unbothered by the new arrivals, their arrogance having made them sloppy. The familiar, terrible play begins. The bottle of whiskey is produced. A party is declared in honour of the new guest, Mary Doherty. She is seated by the fire, and Burke, Hare, and their wives, Margaret and Helen, surround her with a loud, aggressive hospitality. They press drink after drink upon her, their laughter booming through the small, crowded room. The Greys, sitting in a corner, watch this display with a look of visible discomfort. The forced, almost manic cheer of the landlords is unsettling. As the evening wears on, the party becomes wilder. Burke and Hare begin to argue, then wrestle, a mock fight that seems designed to create chaos and distraction. In the midst of this noise, the elderly Mary, now quite drunk, is half carried, half dragged into the small private bedroom at the back, the same room where the miller, Joseph, had died. The door is shut. The party in the common room instantly stops, plunging the house into a sudden, shocking silence. Anne and James Gray, unnerved by the abrupt end to the celebration, sit in the quiet. From the back room they hear a sound, a muffled thump like a struggle, a faint, choked-off cry. And then, silence. James Gray turns to Hare, his face pale. What was that? Hare, his mask of joviality gone, his eyes cold, glares at him. Just a bit of a drunken squabble with the old woman, he snarls. Mind your own business if you know what's good for you. The threat is undisguised. The Greys, terrified, retreat to their own small room, bolting the door. You have been watching all of this from the shadows of the cellar stairs, a silent, terrified ghost. You know what that sound was. You know what is happening behind that closed door. The brazenness of the act is breathtaking. They are no longer even trying to hide it. They have committed a murder in a house full of witnesses. The killer's arrogant, repetitive routine has finally collided with the simple, normal curiosity of a stranger. The Greys' suspicion, a new and dangerous element, now hangs in the air, as thick and as toxic as the chimney smoke. You know, with a sudden dawning certainty, that this time the lie of a sudden departure will not be enough. They have made a mistake, and the body of the old woman, now lying in the back room, is a ticking clock waiting to be found. The next morning, Halloween, the air in the lodging house is not one of celebration, but of a thick, toxic tension. The Greys, Anne and James, emerge from their room, their faces pale from a sleepless night. The common room is quiet. Burke and Hare are already drinking, their voices low and sharp, their mood not jovial but volatile. There is no sign of the old woman, Mary Doherty. Anne Gray, a woman of strong nerve, is plagued by the memory of the muffled sounds and the sudden, aggressive silence from the back room. She asks Margaret Hare, "Where is the old woman who came with Mr. Burke last night?" Margaret snarls at her, her hospitality of the night before completely gone. She became an annoyance. Burke told her to leave. Mind your own business. The answer is too quick, too hostile. Anne Gray's suspicion hardens into a cold certainty. Later that morning, she takes advantage of a moment when the room is empty, and tries the door to the back bedroom where Mary was taken. It is locked. She confronts Helen McDougall. "Why is that door locked?" "I wish to get my stockings." A lie, she had left them in there earlier. Helen refuses, her face a mask of poorly concealed panic. This confirms it for Anne. She tells her husband, "Something terrible has happened to that old woman. As God is my witness, I will find out what." The opportunity comes in the early afternoon. Burke and Hare, perhaps needing more whiskey, or perhaps simply grown so arrogant they fear no one, decide to step out to a nearby pub. They give the Greys a final, menacing warning. "You are to stay out of that back room," Burke growls, his charm completely gone. "Do you understand me?" The moment the door closes behind them, Anne turns to her husband. "They're gone. Now, James, help me." Terrified, but driven by his wife's iron will, James forces the lock on the bedroom door. The room is dark, the air still and foul. It smells of stale whiskey and something else, something coppery and sweet. At first, it appears empty. Then, Anne points to the bed. A pile of dirty straw is heaped underneath it, as if to block a draught. "Look there," she whispers. James kneels. He reaches under the bed and pulls at the straw. He recoils, his hand touching something cold and yielding. He pulls again, and the straw falls away, revealing the naked, lifeless body of Mary Docherty, her face bruised, a wisp of foam on her blue lips. A single, stifled scream escapes Anne's throat. They stare at the horrifying sight for a second, their minds paralyzed by the discovery. The murderer's sloppy, arrogant attempt at concealment has failed, undone by the simple curiosity of a new neighbor. They do not wait. They do not gather their belongings. They do not even close the door to the room. They turn and flee. They run from the house in Tanner's Close, bursting out into the relative safety of the afternoon street, running as if the devils of hell are at their heels. They do not stop until they find a police constable, and the whole terrible, unbelievable story comes pouring out of them in a torrent of terror and relief. You are in the cellar when you hear the Greys run from the house. You hear their panicked, shouting voices fade into the distance. You hear the common room door slam. A profound, unnatural silence descends upon the lodging house. For a few moments, it is just you, the murderers, and their dark secret. But you know, with a sudden dawning and electrifying hope, that the routine is broken. The outside world, the world of law and consequences, has finally been alerted. The strange, suffocating bubble of Tanner's Close has finally burst. The reckoning is coming. You are still huddled on your straw pallet when you hear the noise. It is not the familiar drunken return of Burke and Hare. It is the sound of heavy, measured, purposeful steps. The sound of authority. It is followed by a bang, bang, bang on the common room door, a sound so loud and powerful it seems to shake the very foundations of the house. Open, in the name of the king. A new kind of chaos erupts. You hear Hare's voice, high and panicked. You hear Margaret and Helen screaming. You hear the door splinter open and the heavy, booted feet of the city guard flooding the room above. You crawl to the bottom of the cellar steps, your heart pounding a frantic rhythm of terror and a new, wild, electrifying hope. "The back room!" she said. "The back room!" a voice shouts. You watch from the shadows as the guards, their dark uniforms a stark contrast to the squalor of the house, push past the shrieking women and force open the door to the bedroom. A moment of silence, and then a retching, horrified curse. It's true. By God, it's true. There's a body under the bed. The house explodes into a new phase. The four of them, Burke, Hare, Margaret, and Helen, are dragged out of the house in chains. The entire neighbourhood, the whole of Tanner's Close, is awake now, a sea of pale, shocked, and grimly satisfied faces, illuminated by the flickering torchlight of the guard. You watch from the doorway, a silent, trembling ghost. It is over. The reign of terror in Tanner's Close is finally, blessedly over. But the story now moves from the bloody, firelit cellar to the cold, gaslit offices of the law. And here, a new, more chilling drama begins to unfold. The news of the Westport murders hits Edinburgh like a thunderclap. The city is gripped by a mixture of terror and fascinated revulsion. The public is baying for blood. They want all four of them to hang, and Doc Knox along with them. But the Lord Advocate, the Chief Prosecutor, Sir William Ray, has a serious problem. He has the four culprits. He has the body of Mary Doherty. But that is all he has. The whispers on the street, the things you know, are not evidence. The rumours say there were 12, maybe 16 victims, but where are they? They are gone. They have been reduced to anatomical scraps, their bones scattered, their identities erased on Dr. Knox's dissection table. The one crucial piece of evidence that could have connected them, daft Jamie Wilson, was arrogantly and purposefully destroyed by Knox himself. The Lord Advocate has a weak case. He has one body and four suspects, all of whom are blaming each other. A clever lawyer, he fears, could fill the jury's mind with enough reasonable doubt to see them all walk free on a not-proven verdict. The city would erupt in riots. He needs more. He needs an eyewitness to the other murders. He needs a confession. He needs one of the killers to betray the others. The law provides a grim, powerful tool for just such an occasion: the king's evidence. An offer of total immunity from prosecution, even for capital crimes, in exchange for a full and truthful testimony that will convict his accomplices. He must choose his target. Burke? Too volatile, too much the dull-witted brute. The women? They would just protect their men. It has to be William Hare. Hare, the shrewd, cold and calculating one. The man who saw a £4 debt and turned it into a £7, 10 seconds opportunity. The true mastermind. You can almost imagine the scene, a quiet, dark cell in the Calton jail. The Lord Advocate, a figure of immense formal power, makes his offer to the man from the gutter. Testify, he says, his voice a low, reasonable whisper. Tell us everything. How it began. How you did it. Give us William Burke, and you will walk free. You, your wife, and Helen MacDougall, a full pardon from the king. But if you refuse, you will all hang together. You, James, are also in that jail, held as a material witness. You have told the police what you saw, the parties, the fear, the sudden departures. Your testimony is useful. It paints a dark, compelling picture. But it is not the word of a killer. You are in a cold waiting room when you learn that Hare has accepted the deal. He has, without a moment's hesitation, agreed to send his partner to the gallows to save his own skin. A cold, sickening understanding settles upon you. The public will get its justice. There will be a trial. A man will hang. But it will be a poisoned, compromised kind of justice. To convict the monster, the law has been forced to make a deal with the devil. The complex, brutal truth of the outside world, the world of lawyers and lords, is just as morally bankrupt as the world of Tanner's Close. The public's demand for total, righteous vengeance is about to collide with the cold, pragmatic, and deeply unsatisfying necessity of the law. And you realize, with a chilling certainty, that the man who started it all, the true, cold-blooded architect of this entire nightmare, is about to walk away without a single mark on him. The morning of December 24th, 1828, dawns cold and dark over Edinburgh. It is Christmas Eve, a day that should be filled with the spirit of peace and goodwill. Instead, the city is electric with a different kind of fervour, a dark, bloodthirsty anticipation. The High Court of Justiciary is surrounded by a massive, jostling crowd, their faces pale and eager in the grey morning light, all of them desperate for a glimpse of the monsters who have terrorised their city. You are a part of this spectacle, but not as a spectator. You are a witness. You are led through the angry mob by a constable, your heart pounding a heavy, fearful rhythm. You are brought into the great wood-panelled courtroom. The room is packed, a sea of faces straining in the hot, flickering gaslight. The air is thick and close, smelling of wet wool, unwashed bodies, and a sharp, legal scent of old paper and dust. You see them in the dock, the prisoner's box, William Burke and Helen MacDougall. Burke is a changed man. His boisterous, charming swagger is gone, replaced by the cornered, terrified look of a trapped animal. He darts his eyes around the room, his face slick with sweat. Helen sits beside him, a statue of pale, silent dread. But someone is missing. You scan the room, and then you see him. William Hare is not in the dock with his partner. He is sitting on a separate bench, guarded but apart. He is not a defendant. He is the star witness. He is the king's evidence. The trial is a long, grueling day of testimony. You are called to the stand. You stand before the judge and the jury, your hands trembling. The prosecutor, his voice a calm, slicing monotone, asks you about your time at Tanner's Close. You tell them what you know. You speak of the grim, damp cellar, of the constant coughing misery. You speak of the night old Donald died, and of Hare's cold financial rage. You speak of the strange, sudden parties. You describe the pattern, the arrival of a poor, unknown stranger, the sound of forced, loud revelry, and the next morning, the sudden departure. You tell them of the fear you felt, of the day you overheard them discussing you as a potential product. You cannot say you ever saw them commit a murder. But as you speak, you paint a vivid, chilling picture of the grim, predatory atmosphere of the house, a world where the line between a lodger and a corpse was terrifyingly thin. When you are finished, you retreat to the back of the courtroom, your part in the drama over. Now, the main act begins. William Hare is called to the stand. A wave of hisses and curses ripples through the crowd. Hare, the mastermind, is now untouchable, a protected witness for the crown. He is clean-shaven, dressed in a borrowed, respectable coat. He looks small, shrewd, and utterly unnervingly calm. The prosecutor begins his questions, and Hare begins his confession. His voice is flat, emotionless, as if he is describing a simple, methodical day of labour, like a cobbler or a cooper. He tells them everything. He describes the first murder of the miller Joseph. He details the method they invented. I held the pillow over his mouth and nose, Hare says, his voice clear in the horrified silence of the courtroom. And Burke, he lay himself over the man's chest to stop him from struggling. It was done in a minute. No blood, no marks. From the dock, Burke lets out a low, animalistic growl. Liar. You lie, Hare. You dog. The judge slams his gavel, calling for order. Hare does not even look at his former friend. He continues, his voice never changing. He recounts the murder of Abigail Simpson. He recounts the murder of Daft Jamie. He is a living ledger, ticking off the names of the dead, detailing the price each body fetched from Dr. Knox. It is a horrifying, mesmerizing performance. Burke, trapped in the dock, can only writhe and deny. He lies. He was the one. It was his idea, he roars, his face purple with rage. But his denials are chaotic, animalistic. Hare's testimony is calm, detailed, and cold as ice. The terrible irony is that Hare, the monster, is telling the absolute truth. And that truth is the rope that is now tightening around Burke's neck. Finally, in the early hours of Christmas morning, after a trial that has lasted all day and all through the night, the jury returns. The courtroom is hushed, the air thick with exhaustion and suspense. The verdict is read. For Helen MacDougall, not proven, a uniquely Scottish verdict. Not innocent, but not enough evidence to convict. A gasp goes up from the crowd. She is free. For William Burke, guilty. The word is a hammer blow. Burke seems to collapse in on himself, his boisterous energy gone, leaving only a broken, trembling shell. The crowd in the gallery explodes, a great, roaring cheer of triumph and bloodlust. The judge puts on the black cap, a formal, chilling ritual. He sentences William Burke to be hanged by the neck until dead, and for his body in the final, perfect irony to be delivered to the university, to be publicly dissected and anatomized for all eternity. You stumble out of the courtroom into the cold, grey light of Christmas morning. The crowd outside is a joyful, celebrating mob, ecstatic at the verdict. But you feel no joy. You feel only a deep, profound sickness. Justice has been served, but it is a twisted, ugly, and incomplete justice. Helen McD, Oogle, who lured the victims, is free. Hare, the man who held the pillow, the man who planned it all, will be set free, a reward for his betrayal. And Dr. Knox, the respectable gentleman whose insatiable demand created the entire market for murder, will never even be charged. The law has found its scapegoat. The city will get its hanging. But you, James, who lived in that cellar and saw the darkness in their eyes, you know the truth. The hand that did the killing will be punished. But the cold, calculating mind behind it all has beaten them all, and he is walking away. January 28th, 1829, the day of the reckoning. You stand in the vast, surging crowd that fills the lawn market, your feet numb on the freezing cobblestones. The air is electric, a strange, festive, and bloodthirsty energy rippling through the 25,000 souls who have gathered in the pre-dawn darkness to see a man die. This is the city's great, final act of communal judgment. You had to be here. You, who lived in the shadow of these men, who ate the bread bought with their blood money, who feared you would be their next victim, you have to see the end of it. A great, low roar builds from the crowd as the procession appears. And there he is, William Burke. He is no longer the boisterous, charming host of the common room. He is a broken, trembling man, his face a pale, waxy grey, his eyes wide with a terror that is all too human. He is hurried up the steps of the scaffold, the noose already waiting. He tries to speak, but his words are lost in the great howling jeer of the crowd. They do not want his confession, they want his death. You watch, your heart a cold, hard knot as the black hood is pulled over his head, a final, impersonal anonymity. The trapdoor springs, the rope snaps taut, and a great, guttural roar of triumph, a sound of profound, satisfied vengeance, erupts from the thousands of throats around you. The muscle has been punished. Justice, it seems, has been served. But the reckoning is not over. It is only the beginning of the great, dark ironies that will define this story forever. The day after his execution, Burke's body is delivered, as per his sentence, to the university's anatomy theatre. He, the man who supplied the dissection tables, now becomes the specimen. You hear the stories, told with a grim, fascinated relish in the taverns. The theatre was so packed with rioting students and paying citizens that a riot broke out. His body, the ultimate irony, was publicly dissected, his skeleton preserved, his skin tanned, and, according to rumour, sold in strips as souvenirs. He has become, in death, the very thing he created in life, a product for public consumption. And what of the others? What of the rest of the family? Helen McDougall, his partner, is released. Her not proven verdict, a legal quirk, means she is free but not innocent. She is recognized by the crowd, a mob that, having tasted blood, now wants more. She is nearly torn apart, barely escaping with her life, vanishing into the countryside, a ghost haunted by the public's fury. And William Hare, the mastermind, the man who first saw the potential in old Donald's corpse, the man who held the pillow over the miller's face, his part of the bargain is honoured. He is the king's evidence, and he must be set free. He is released from the Calton jail, and he too is immediately set upon by a mob, his face reportedly slashed and blinded by acid. He escapes, and then he vanishes. Completely. The architect of the entire murderous enterprise, the man who betrayed his friend to save his own skin, is swallowed by the mists of history, never to be seen or heard from again. And finally, Dr. Robert Knox, the customer. The respectable, brilliant, and arrogant man whose insatiable demand for fresh specimens created the entire market for this horror. He is never charged. He is too wealthy, too well connected. The law cannot or will not touch him, but the city of Edinburgh has its own verdict. His anatomy theatre, once the most popular in the city, is now empty. His students abandon him. He is hissed at in the street. An effigy of him is burned in the public square. His reputation is ruined. He, the man of science and high society, is left with nothing. You sit in your new, safer lodging, far from Tanner's Close, writing a final entry in your own private journal. You try to make sense of the past year. Burke, the brute force, is dead and dissected. Hare, the cold, calculating mind, is a free man, a vanished ghost. Knox, the wealthy, civilized engine of demand, is shamed but legally untouched. You have seen the law in all its terrible, compromised majesty. The public's demand for total justice was met, but it feels hollow, unsatisfying. To catch the brute, the law had to make a deal with the devil himself. The final, grim conflict is not one you witnessed, but one you are left to ponder. It is the conflict between the chaotic, passionate justice of the mob and the cold, complex, and often deeply unsatisfying compromises of the law. You have survived. You are safe, but you will carry the knowledge of Tanner's Close with you forever, that the most monstrous acts can have the most mundane, businesslike motives, and that a killer's greatest escape is not a dark alley, but a legal loophole. And so, the grim tale of Burke and Hare comes to a close, a dark story of science, greed, and a chillingly compromised justice. It is time to leave the cold, gaslit closes of 1,820 seconds Edinburgh behind. Let the memory of the dark cellar, the courtroom, and the unsettling bargains fade away. Your own long day is over, and the shadows of the past can no longer reach you. All that matters now is the quiet safety of your room and the deep, restorative rest that awaits. If this journey into one of history's most chilling chapters helped you unwind, a quiet like is always deeply appreciated. And if you wish to join us for more stories from the shadows, please consider subscribing. Thank you for spending your time with me tonight. May your sleep be sound and untroubled. Until our next story, good night.